I'm Erika Morris. Let's fact check some claims made about the housing crisis. Claim number 7, there's just too many barriers to building homes. Quebec needs to build 150,000 new units per year over the next decade to preserve affordability. But in 2023, only about 30,000 started construction. Why is that? Partially because those who want to build homes, sometimes that's the government, but mostly private developers, have some hoops to jump through. Let's break down which ones are very real and some that might be overstated. Barrier 1, there's just not much open space to build in cities. Now that one is very real. Urban sprawl has reached the limits of where people can reasonably commute from, and within metropolitan areas, there's virtually no space left that hasn't been developed. Compared to other Canadian cities, a lot of Montreal is already multifamily housing, but efforts to develop green space do run into environmental and resident opposition, which brings us to barrier number 2, nimby-ism, or not in my backyard mentality. Overstated? Maybe. nimby-ism does shut down some housing developments. A low-cost rental project was axed in Montreal's West Island after residents raised concerns about property value and possible criminal activity. But some experts say it isn't as big of a problem in Montreal, where most of our housing stock is already low-rise apartments, compared to places like the Toronto area, which is mostly single-family homes. Barrier number 3, zoning. Now that one is overstated. People often point the finger to restrictive zoning laws that limit densification by, say, limiting the height of buildings or the type of housing that can be built. Most cities do have strict zoning rules, but that might be overstated for Montreal. Like I said, a lot of the city is already zoned for multifamily housing. And policy's been changing. The Plateau recently banned the conversion of duplexes and triplexes into single-family homes. And Bill 31 gave cities the power to ignore some of their own urban planning rules and allows for the conversion of things like basements and garages into their own housing unit. Barrier 4, red tape and bureaucracy. Now those are overstated. A recent study showed that those factors are not the main obstacles to solving Quebec's housing crisis. Developers are. Again, Bill 31 allowed cities to ignore their own bylaws to fast-track construction, and Montreal introduced measures to reduce delays in obtaining building permits. Trends in the housing sector over the last 20 years showed that the industry actually thrived under existing rules. There were massive investments in housing, and yet prices went up exponentially. Why? Private sector developers simply don't want to build affordable housing, and social housing hasn't been the government's priority.